But at your request, Member for Kennedy, I'm quite happy to call the member for Fadden.
Mr Speaker, thank you, Member for Kennedy. Thank you. Let me state clearly and unequivocally in the words of Tony Abbott as I rise to lend some comment on the National Disability Insurance Scheme that this is an idea whose time has come. All of us in this chamber know that the system of support for Australians with disability is frankly broken. The provision of disability services has long been the proviso of the states, but unfortunately the states have unfunded, failed to consult and work together and failed to deliver a seamless, consistent disability support program. The concept of a national disability insurance scheme has gained momentum over the last half-decade, due in much part to a grassroots campaign by carers, Australians with disability and the various organisations that support them. The idea, conceived in much part by John Walsh AM, a partner from PwC, and progressed by Bryce Bonnie-Hody AM, the President of Philanthropy Australia, and of course was first canvassed at the 2020 summit in 2008. It's important to note that in 2009 we, the Coalition, supported the government's referral to the Productivity Commission for an inquiry into this important area, and the final report of the Productivity Commission inquiry was subsequently released in August 2011 and received bipartisan support. Its conclusions are wholeheartedly endorsed by this side of the House. It's pleasing to see agreements have been reached with 5 states and jurisdictions to host launch sites: New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania, South Australia and the ACT. And Queensland and Western Australia are now hosting launch sites, but have both submitted proposals to the Commonwealth to be part of an NDIS. It's important to note that the Productivity Commission never envisaged every state hosting a launch site, and they never saw the absence of a launch site as a bar to taking place in a full national rollout. Indeed, Premier Newman has written to the Prime Minister with a proposal to be part of the national rollout, and Premier Barnett has written to the Prime Minister proposing a joint WA Commonwealth NDIS. The Labor government has sought to claim this idea as their own. Noted they put it to the Productivity Commission to their credit, but now is the time for bipartisanship. This is an idea whose time has come. We, the Coalition, have enthusiastically supported every milestone on the road towards the NDIS. We supported the initial work by the Productivity Commission. We supported the $1 billion in the last budget. We supported the 5 launch sites. We supported the agreement between the Commonwealth and the New South Wales for a full state-wide rollout after the Hunter launch, and we support this legislation. We support a person-centred, self-directed funding model. It's aligned to the objectives of empowering the individual, removing government from people's lives and reducing red tape. This truly is a once-in-a-generation reform, and it will unfold over several parliaments. It's therefore the property of the parliament, 150 men and women who represent the country as a whole. This is the property of the Australian people, not of one particular political persuasion. Because we all know we need a new system of support based on need rather than state-based rationing. The individual needs to be at the centre of this. They need to be in charge. The individual must be able to pick the supports, the aids, the equipment and the service providers of their choice. Personal choice, personal empowerment, linking in with personal responsibility with the person at the centre. I love it. It's classic liberalism. Government out of the way. Individual choice front and centre. I'm personally committed to this as much as because the calibre of a nation is a reflection of how it treats its marginalised, its elderly, its infirm, its disadvantaged, its veterans. And also because I watched as my Auntie Sue, my mother's sister, battled the system for decades and decades for her 2 children, my first cousins Alex and Joel. These 2 little children were born profoundly deaf, unable to speak, suffering Down syndrome and a range of other substantial conditions, including severe autism. These combined disabilities would take the life of little Alex, and through the grace of God, Joel still lives his life as productively as possible considering the profound and multiple disabilities he suffers from. And what of my dear old Auntie Sue? She volunteers and works for kids and with kids with disabilities. And dear old Uncle Reg remains a champion by his side. Some people are true gifts. They epitomise what it means when Jesus said, "Whatever you did for the least of these people, of my people, you did for me." Auntie Sue and Uncle Reg are two of those people. There are other gifts. In my electorate, Mike Dyer and his family, who live in Runaway Bay, they have two daughters, aged 22 and 20, both who suffer from Friedreich's ataxia, a neurodegenerative condition that have both girls in wheelchairs. It's a condition for which currently there's neither treatment nor cure. These two young ladies are intelligent, they are engaging, they attend university and they have an enormous amount to contribute to society, but they suffer a physical disability, physical only, and they need a reasonably high level of support. Mike Dyer, for his great credit, is also the president of the Friedreich's Ataxia Research Association, FARA, which is a not-for-profit organisation whose purpose is to fund research on FA. They've raised $4 million to date, impressive, for research into a condition that affects about 300 Australians. Every dollar FARA raises is put to work. Every research project they fund, every trial they sponsor represents progress. Small steps may be, but progress it is. They are on a mission with an objective that's realistic, and they believe, and I believe, will be achieved. Like all things, it's a question of time. Progress is made every single day, and researchers' continued commitment is explained by the sentiment that, you know what, we think we can get this one done. The work they do is important. Mike is quite rightly looking forward to the day when the current disjoined system of rationing is replaced with the full implementation of an NDIS, the full implementation of a new deal for his daughters, a new deal for people with disabilities and their carers, a new deal for these two bright, intelligent, engaging young women to make choices, their own choices in their own care for their own lives. We have demonstrated a personal commitment in this space. Tony Abbott has demonstrated a personal commitment in this space, a commitment to Australians with disabilities. He's raised over $540,000 through the 2012 Polypedal charity bike ride for Carers Australia. And along that 1,000-kilometre route, Mr Abbott met with people with disabilities, with carers, disability organisations, with mums and dads, with brothers and sisters, with everyday Australians who would never have the opportunity to front a senior politician like the Prime Minister or a Leader of the Opposition. He met them in Lycra on his bike on a journey through small country towns. The next two Polypedals will also be in partnership with and raise funds for Carers Australia. We believe an NDIS can be delivered within the time frame recommended by the Productivity Commission by a prudent government that manages well. Any comments that should be made in this House about an NDIS must be offered constructively and in a spirit to make the NDIS the best that it can possibly be. Let me state categorically we stand ready to work with the government to see this delivered as soon as possible. This will require a higher level of consultation, attention to detail, not just on the launch sites, but from now to full implementation. We still believe that a joint parliamentary committee chaired by both sides of politics to oversee the establishment and implementation of this is the best way to go. It would lock in all parties and provide a non-partisan environment where the issues of design and eligibility could be worked through cooperatively. NDIS is not owned by a party, by a side, by an ideology or a belief. It's owned by the people of this nation. George Christensen has a motion in the House to establish this committee. I look forward to it receiving widespread support. This is not an issue that we will draw swords on, Mr Deputy Speaker. We will draw swords elsewhere. I look across the table at the Minister, Minister Clare, until recently a senior minister with Defence, and he and I would draw swords regularly, although we, of course, would decide in the field of battle like times of old and keep our bipartisanship to the fullest extent and only fight on the issues that we had decided on, because defence was important. Well, there is something else that is as important, I think, as defence in the public life of our nation, and that is the care for those with disability. Just like our strong bipartisanship in defence, just like the strong bipartisanship the Minister across the desk and I have had on combat operations in Afghanistan and elsewhere, we offer that same bipartisanship on the NDIS with the same strength and the same commitment, because we all just want to see it get done.